We're just gonna be live now. Hi everybody. Oh God.
Hello.
I think you're sweating. Matt, from all the stress
Matt,
you're
there's
under.
no sound.
Yeah,
Everybody's saying that there's no sound.
Oh, there's no sound now.
There's no sound from me.
Okay.
There's no sound from me. That you guys were
okay.
having sound.
There's no sound from you.
Of course,
Oh,
you know what?
shit.
This is what we call Murphy's Law. When you don't do something and
Okay,
it's like
so-
a really big deal.
Do you still have no sound, Matt?
No, I do have sound for sure.
You have sound.
I definitely was
Very
muted
good.
a minute ago.
Okay, good.
But you guys
Right.
weren't. It was just me. So
What a fucking
okay, great.
man.
Anyway, this is our not bi-weekly Devstream. Hi everybody. How's everybody doing? Mark, tell us what's been going on in the studio.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Fuck! What a
I feel
disaster.
like I don't even know where to start after all those technical problems, but I guess we'll.
It can only go up from here.
It can only go uphill from this point forward. Fingers crossed. No, this is we've been super busy in the last while. This is our busy time of year. For those of you that have been with us for a while, you know that the summer update is usually one of our biggest updates of the year, or it's like the update with a large amount of changes and content and features. And this stream is actually just going to be the first part of several parts that will be spread throughout our blogs, our streams over the next month. So everything we talk about here in the next like hour or so will probably be about like I think 30% of I don't know what you think, Max. Do you think 30% is about the right number? 30-40% of everything that's going to this update? Because you were kind of saying that you weren't sure if it was too much or too little, right? That we're showing.
I would say that it's like we should say it's 50%, so that when we over deliver, it's better for us. You know.
Right. But yeah, so this is just the first part. There's a couple of cool things that we're ready to show because we still are working on the update right now. But I guess before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about going to 1.0. So we mentioned it on Zero Dark stream the other time, but we're probably about like 6 to 12 months away from 1.0. So it's no longer so far in the future that we can't see when it's going to be. So it is going to be coming. And I always get a lot of questions about what's going to happen at 1.0. And to be honest, I don't think that much is there's going to be obviously there's going to be like a huge update at that point, and you know it's going to be all this exciting features and content, and probably going to be one of the biggest updates of the game in history of the game. But at the same time, I don't think that much is going to change in the sense that we're just going to continue working on the game. And Foxhole is a huge game with lots of problems to solve, with lots of exciting features and content that we want to work on. There's lots of big sort of like aspirations that we have, and that's gonna continue until after 1.0. So nothing is gonna really big is gonna change in that regard. I think if there is anything that's gonna change is that the frequency of us changing around big parts of the gameplay is probably going to be less. It doesn't mean we're never going to do it again, but it means that we're not going to take the same type of liberty as we do in the early access period of just like changing things around back and forth on a frequent basis. We'll probably do less of that, and I think we'll also focus a lot more on the polished features, like the new player experience, player profiles. There'll probably be like a rank reset, that sort of thing at 1.0. But you know, after it comes out, it's probably going to be like business as usual for us, at least in the foreseeable future. So we're going to be working on Foxhole for many years to come, and the summer update is just going to be the next step in those many years.
It's a big step.
Nice. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
One of many.
community highlights.
So let's move on to community highlights because I know that everybody is really itching to see what we've got cooking up. So it has been a while since we've done even a community highlights at all. I think.
Yeah.
Max? Is that true?
Yeah, it has certainly been quite a while. I haven't done the actual community highlights post either since we stopped the dev stream. So we've got like a month and a half of community highlights to go through. So we're going to do the entire stream of just community highlights.
How to upset 800 people all at once.
Yeah. So get your weeb hat on. Here we go.
Yeah. Don't worry, I got my weeb hat always on.
I kind of want like a big hat that just says weeb now.
Mark,
but I'm not. So
Yes, I will.
thank you.
Here.
It's actually a Reddit post where you've got a weeb shirt on, Matt, where they photoshopped it.
Oh, I know. Foxy sent it to me.
It's awesome.
Give me a second.
I was surprised that it was for you.
Yeah, me too. I was like, why wasn't
Right?
it you? It's because I'm wearing the suit in my profile picture.
Okay, Devstream 86. Let's do this. Let me highlights. Oh yeah, this is really cool. So I don't know if everybody knows about the census that happened. It's a little bit cropped onto the left and right as per usual, but that's fine. So Leo, he organized it. He already did one before as well. This is the second or the third one. I think might even be the third one, right? Yeah, this is the third one. And to basically just showcasing some really cool stuff, some really cool statistics. It's a fair amount of people contributed, which is nice. Of course, it doesn't portray the whole community because no census ever portrays the whole community, but it is significant. You can see there's some really cool distributions. You can see that Europe is basically almost the same size as North America right now, which is something I think North America used to be much larger before. Europe has been encroaching on that. And there's a lot of people that has come into Foxhole on this last year, which is really nice. So we can see that the game's still gaining new players. And there's a lot of players that still play from a long time. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, actually, I think the most exciting part of this for me, or the most interesting part, is that I think a lot of players voted for the number one thing we need to fix is boring logistics. And then on the why Foxhole, they said that one of the reasons why they picked Foxhole was for the logistics aspect, which might seem counterintuitive when you look at it, but actually it makes a lot of sense. I think what's interesting about this, it sort of conforms to what we believed anyway, was that players come to this game because for a unique experience. They're coming for this logistics, and it's also because they're coming to Foxhole for logistics. It's why they want to see more of the logistics aspect worked on.
It's why we should focus on making it better. Basically, it makes total sense if it is one of the main aspects of it. We always had plans to continue with a larger scale warfare. Although soldier insignificance, I like the fact that people understand that you as a soldier you're not worth much. Alone, you have to go with everybody else. So that's actually really, really nice.
I see you guys. Sorry.
Go for it.
I see you guys in chat. You guys are all like, skip this. Let's get to the update. I know you guys are really excited to see the update, but I want you guys to remember that the guys who produce this stuff for our community, these guys are the forefront of our game. These guys are the ones that are ultimately helping us out with our feedback. This is really important stuff to us, and so we're making it important to you. So we're not skipping this, and we hope that you guys will enjoy this as much as we do, but if not, well, you're going to have to wait.
It's been 80 something updates, dev streams in which I completely ignore the cries of skipping the community highlights. So I'm not going to start now. So I think that what Max said is absolutely right. One of the most important parts of this whole census were those two parts right in the center. It's a little bit cropped, but the circle in the top middle, it's the problems that people see with the game. And the one right below it, why Foxhole. So these are things that we definitely pay a lot of attention. I think it's very, very important. And I think as a secondary is the favorite roles in the game, because we always thought that being is not just fun to be a gunner in front, but it's also fun to do other stuff. And I think that does showcase that the other people think similarly than us. The vision, which is the thing that everybody hates for me to hear, and that's a second check mark on their bingo, since I already said it. It is important. Other people share it, so we're not just taking this out of context. No, like other people like it as well. And if we can make a game that lots and lots of players get to enjoy it on their personal way of playing, I think that's a unique thing that we can get for Foxhole that not many games can. So cool. Yeah, I gave the bingo away. How do you like it now? I completely changed it, huh? I gave you the bingo. Do you feel worth it now? Just joking. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Otherwise, people are going to stay here for a long time. We have the Foxhole Competitive League, which it just happened. What does TBBT stands for? Actually, I don't know the acronym, Max.
Oh, I don't know either.
Yeah. So, congratulations to them. I actually don't know what the
10man's in the chat. I'm sure he'll let us know.
Tankman Belly Button Team.
10man's Belly Button Team. That sounds about right.
Fantastic. That sounds great. Congratulations on winning. It was actually amazing. I think it was the best competitive league that we had so far. I really liked the way the matches were showcased. That's in no small amount to the people that organize it, the streamers and co-streamers, the commentators, everybody that worked on it. They made sure that showcase the matches themselves. Of course, the players that played on the match were really important, but this is no small undertake that they did, and rightly deserved. They have our thanks for doing this. The community, thank you as well. And they deserve all the praise that they got. It's really worth it. I hope they end up doing a competitive leagues number 6. I really, really do, because it's one of the highlights for us to see what's going on. It is Go on, Max.
I want to give a special shout out to Quinson, ex Lord Metalman Jr., Shadowbird, Marinova, and Akira. Akira and Marinova organized this whole thing, put it together right from the start. And it's no easy task trying to organize 120 players into a tournament. And then about partway through, they passed the torch off to Quincenix and Lord Metalman. And I think the transition was so seamless thanks to these two guys that I don't think any of the teams even noticed that the organization switched over. And there were some bumps, obviously, but really it means a lot to us how much effort you guys put into putting this whole thing together. TBBT, you guys were great. There's no way you could have beaten our team without a little luck. So, I mean, you got winner, but, I hope you know it was all luck. Wolfie, you know what I'm talking about, Wolfie?
Shots can fire, man. Sheesh.
No, the final match was actually against TBBT and Vox. Both of them put up such an amazing game that the end went down to almost a draw. The last I don't think either team captured the town hall, so it went down to sudden death, which hadn't happened at all in the entire history of the tournament, where it was that close, especially in the finals. So it was a great match. Dury's got a video where you guys can watch it. His YouTube channel covers all the matches, so please take a look at that. Sorry, not Vox Talks. Thank you, Chiprock.
All right, should I move on?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, so let's actually start into the illustration part of the community highlights. This is an amazing piece done by Lisek. I don't know how to pronounce absolutely any name, so I'll get all of them wrong. It's just so good. I like the atmosphere. It's not an easy point of view to showcase. I like the fight. The water is just so well done. Has so much energy on it. I know we keep saying that we see better and better illustrations from like every time, but it seems to be true. Like you guys keep like pushing yourselves further and further and just doing more amazing stuff.
So I feel like this illustration is like a hint for us to finally add the oil rigs into the game.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna fight for it. If the oil rig turns into fights like those, I am all in game for us to focus on that. So yeah, that would be sweet. Next one. So yeah, there's several pieces here. On the left, I think another thank you is in order, just from as the guys from the league. 4 years of the UBGE, which is União Brasileira de Gamers. I forgot what the E stand for. Em nome de todos, em nome do único brasileiro no time, eu agradeço muito por vocês ainda continuarem com a gente. Léo, é um prazer sempre que você sendo moderador. Thank you everybody from UBG. Thank you all the guys. I know that you guys keep doing like all like training and everything. It is a pleasure to have you guys. Congratulations on the 4 years. Hope for many more years. They don't play just, by the way, they don't play just Foxhole. They play several games. So just, go check it out if you are Brazilian and search for other games as well. Go check them out. We have some really, really cool art. We have one from Pasta. I think this is really cool. I particularly like the one in the top middle because it's a completely different look on the Wardens. The Wardens, somehow, they, most of the time, like 90% of the time, they are portrayed with having gas masks, but they use the same gas masks that we do in game. And I really, really like this design. It's like very unique. It's very different. I think it's really sweet. I like the art style. Man, I can't wait for people to mod uniforms into our game. We have one from Vaccine in the very middle, bottom middle there. Very cute drawing. I like Vaccine. What are you doing, Mark?
Yeah, I'm trying to fix the.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's a problem with the Discord.
It's the capture because of the way I have to capture it. I wouldn't worry too much about it. We just have to make sure not to put things at the edges when we put these things together.
Yeah, we always forget about it. It's fine. So the one from Vaccine in the middle, I like that one. Vaccine has some really cute drawings, and I like just inserting him on the Foxhole, I guess, world. And Dauntless, this illustration from Dauntless on the right there really caught our eyes. Like really, really caught our eyes. We had several illustrations about medical uniforms. We know we talked about that before. We had other illustrations, but this one is particularly well thought out. They're very distinctive between the two clans. I think they fall into the Foxhole aesthetics very well. I really like it. If you guys please check it out on the community highlights blog post itself, because then you can see the whole image. I'm sorry, Dauntless, for having it cropped, but it is what it is. Next one, Mark. Too many M's in this thing. Sarcastic doing some amazing illustrations again. I don't think I've seen much of their stuff before. I like the general feel of the illustrations. It's like has this old style appeal to it that we see, but like this is very different. Still a little very anime like, and you guys know I love that stuff. People are talking about the waifus in our chat. Yeah, I love me some Foxhole waifus. Very, very well done. So only praises. Next one. I'm going a little bit faster right now. I know we are. Mark? Yeah, there you go. Superior is just like so prolific. I think that this really showcase the quality of work that he can put out. And not only that, like the different styles that he can portray, like Superior always like blows our mind on the quality of stuff that he does. I really like. We've seen a lot of his 3D stuff, but like for instance, the one on the right, it's kind of like a Attack on Titan style Foxhole illustration. Lots of energy. Like the impact. I like the drawing. Very, 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 very well done. And I think the last thing that we have, okay, this is a new thing. Before you play, Mark, I just want to say a little bit about what it is. I was contacted by Lysec in the name of a lot of people. These players, they are creating this Warden anthem, and we don't want to showcase the whole thing because they're gonna have a full reveal very soon. So I just want to play a little bit. So they created the whole anthem for the Wardens. It's might be non-canon, but they want to spread it through all the different clans, see how they can adapt, what they can do with it, and kind of become more of a narrative thing. I guess kind of like the gas masks became like sort of a motif of the Wardens in the community. They want to do the same thing for this anthem. It's pretty sweet. Play it a little bit, Mark, but don't play it all. Good. That's it. We're not going to play it all.
Why not? Let's stay here for 3 minutes and listen to the
I know, right? So I hope that you guys watch it, listen to it when it's released, when it's fully released. And I hope the Colonials come with something. It's our turn to shine. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty solid. I hope you guys check it out. I think that's it for the community highlights for now. As you guys know, we try to, this is just a preview of all the stuff that we have in the actual dev blog. We are going to have the dev blog, the community highlights blog post very soon. It's going to probably be a gigantic one because it hasn't been done in a while, and you guys can actually properly see and listen to everything. So yeah, thank you very much for everybody that contributed. Thank you very much for, if you have something that you want to showcase that is not in the community highlights preview, check out the blog post. And if it's also not there, send me a message. Send me or Max a message, and then we'll check it out. We love seeing this stuff. Thank you very much for like keeping us going, because it makes a big difference for us to see all this stuff. It really keeps us energized. And without further ado, finally, well, we didn't hit 800 yet. We need 2 more people to hit 800. So I guess we shouldn't go into the development update, right?
We're well over.
Wait for the next.
I don't know what you're looking at, but we're way past. So.
Okay, so
so we're good. Great. Let's get to it. So, like I said, this is just a fraction of what's coming in the summer update, which is Arms Race is the name of the update, and you'll find out why it's called Arms Race. Hopefully, by the end of this stream, or maybe by the end of the next one.
Maybe it'll be the next one,
or maybe never. It'll just always remain a mystery. But in any case, let's get to what it's going to be all about. So there's 4 big parts to this update. One is a major revamp of our vehicle system, which I can't wait to talk about. A new reactive technology system. So this is a complete replacement of the tech tree in Foxhole, which we've had for 2-3 years or so. And this is going to be more of a player-driven system with more consequence, and I can't wait to get to it. These are the 2 big things we're going to talk about on this stream. The rest of the update, there's going to be some new logistics features and content. A lot of it is based on some of the feedback that we've heard, and I can't wait to talk about that. And there's actually a whole bunch of other features that I can't believe how much more there is actually. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't fall under any of these other categories, but just been miscellaneous things that we've been working on that are finally making it into the game, right? So this is going to be the biggest update of the year. Let's get started. So first of all, let's talk about vehicles, right? And a feature that's highly related to the vehicles, and we're almost counting it as part of the vehicle system, is a brand new system for our roads. And basically, we painstakingly reconstructed every single road in the world. And I think Matt and Leon will be able to talk about how much pain it was, and basically recreating the entire road system of the whole world. And there's a lot of cool things about this new road system. First of all, it's based on a physical geometry, whereas the old roads were basically more or less the sort of easy way to like describe it is it was a layer of like paint that was on the landscape, but now it's actually like physical geometry, right? And this gives us a lot more like accuracy in terms of knowing where exactly the vehicles are colliding with the road, and also things like the map screen. And there's also going to be 3 tiers of roads now, right? Which is going to make the game a lot more interesting because you're not just dealing with the same type of roads. You're going to want to take the optimal roads because some roads are more optimal in some ways in terms of vehicle physics, which is something else I want to talk about soon. Another big thing is the map. The roads will be much clearer on the map, right? So we, this is a huge feedback that we got from you guys all the way back since we changed the way that we generated the map images. But on top of that, I just personally like how the roads look. They changed the look of the game, and they just look so much better, in my opinion. Because roads is such a big part of the game. Like if you're a Logi player, you're staring at roads for like more than half the time. And I think that putting in we really wanted to make sure that this part of the game that players were going to be interacting with so long for so much of the game time that we wanted to make it a lot better, right? Because a big focus of this update as well is to just improve on the moment to moment experiences that players have with many parts of the Logi game. And this isn't just with the roads. There's going to be more we're going to be talking about on the next stream here. And Matt, maybe you could talk a little bit about like how much work this was.
Yeah. So I think like, was it like probably like 10 months ago, like a really long time ago, Anthony and I did a prototype on the original Deadlands, and we basically said, what would it take to basically recreate the roads, but make them out of mesh with like real collisions? Because one of the big problems is like a lot of games, terrain is really, really good, but sometimes the collisions can get kind of wacky, as you guys have seen, especially when we're working at the scale beyond Foxhole. We can't painstakingly like comb over every single like polygon of landscape and make sure that it's absolutely perfect. It's really, really hard. There's just so much, and there's so few people to actually like comb over everything. So by having mesh with collisions, we can control exactly how the roads work. So even if you're going down a hill or like going on like a rocky pass or something, I can guarantee that now the collisions are going to be good because they're done with these meshes. And so we determined that it was pretty feasible to do. And so I think we spent some time. I mean, this will probably be something that we talk about a little bit later, Mark. But there are obviously like challenges with like trenches.
For sure, yeah.
That's going to be a whole thing. But we spent a lot of time just working on a pipeline to do this, and then when we figured it out, Leon and myself, we went through and we replaced all the roads with these new roads. And I think what's really cool is that there's these different tiers of roads that you were talking about. I think that's going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, actually, I'll talk about that next. Actually, is the road tiers. Basically, there's these 3 tiers, and the amount of resistance that you get on each of these road tiers is going to be slightly different. So that when you're choosing your route, right now you just sort of base it on which roads are the most secure. But now there's also another factor there, right? Which is how much resistance you're gonna be facing on those roads, right? And speaking of road resistance, why is that gonna matter now? Well, actually,
Well, first
before I
we'll
get
get
there, I
before
spoiled my big like reveal with something else, but I think this is kind of cool.
Before you even get to that, though, I also just want to talk about like sometimes like one of the big things that happens in some maps is like you have these like really like rural routes that you kind of have to take sometimes that don't always have like the most optimal flow, but in some cases maybe there'll be a road there that's a little better, so that like that long way might not even be so long, or there's just an optimal like road path that you can take that will just like speed up traveling through the map. But now your enemy can block that road because they know you're probably going to be using it, and so there's a lot of different like layers that can be tacked on with these tiers that I think are going to be really interesting.
Yes.
But with this new map as well, we're also going to be. This is kind of like an early version of it. You can kind of see it a little bit on there, but we're also going to be working on making sure that the road tiers are really explicit on the map. I want you to know what the roads are when you actually see it on the map. Right now, we're just working on making sure that that's really like clear. So
cool.
That's
and
it.
Now back to what I was talking about, the road resistance. Actually, it'd be so funny if there was like another slide ahead that wasn't the thing. Anyways, realistic physics system, right? So this has been a huge project for us. This is sort of like the technical challenge, or at least one of the big technical challenges of this update, is we developed a new physics system for the vehicles, and we did this from the ground up. We had to do a lot of research actually on how vehicles actually behave, and we came up with a physically accurate driving model. This really brings a lot. Like just having right now, vehicles are kind of strange. They all kind of turn like tanks, but this accurately simulates suspension. It accurately simulates how the tires and the treads will interact with the roads, which is why the road resistance actually matters now. The differential modes actually make it so that something like a truck turns in a different way than something like a tank. And on top of that, there's a new control, which is the handbrake input, because vehicles they won't just stop like instantly. When you stop pushing the forward button, they'll actually continue to roll with proper force. They will continue to roll forward, and you'll have to use the handbrake, which should add a bit more level of depth to the driving. There's also a few improvements to the visuals. We added, so the body of the vehicles actually move according to the inertia that the vehicle is experiencing, and there's cool effects for when you're driving over dirt, which Matt worked very hard on. So
I really hope. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No.
I really hope Casey does a dev blog post about this, because he was describing it to me the other day about like how it all works and fits together, and it's amazing. Like he managed to get it down to just these simple bullet points, because the system is so much more complex than that.
Yeah,
and I hope he'll do a dev blog post all about it.
Yeah, I was asking him about the details of it, and he gave me this longer list. And I was like, well, I don't know if we have that much time to like go through all this, but I'm definitely looking for that too, because there was a lot of work that was put into this, and a lot that goes under the hood for this feature. So another thing is the network prediction model is also improved as well. So we hope to see some improvements there. But as you can see here, the driving experience, this image here, you can see how much the driving experience is improved. The handling is more realistic. There's skidding, you can drift, you continue rolling instead of just stopping, and you can parallel park. I put this on not because it's an important feature, but because it just shows what the new system is capable of, right?
Something that was absolutely not possible before.
No other game has you can parallel park as a bullet point on a feature.
Well, I mean, in the crowded town, maybe you will want to actually parallel park. But and actually, when you're going uphill versus downhill, that actually has more of an impact on your speed. So all these things, I think, will. I think we can all agree that the driving physics in Foxhole has been serviceable, but not the best. And this is another huge feedback that we've heard over and over again, which is like, I wouldn't mind doing more logi if the physics were better. Well, here's the better physics, right? And I think we're gonna go to a video now. Once.
Do you want me to?
No, I think I can pull this off.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Good, because in order to fix the aspect ratio, I had to turn off our cameras.
Gotcha. So let me.
When we do the dev branch for this, we're definitely going to do a Grand Prix, like you guys are suggesting in chat there.
Oh,
we got to, test the vehicle physics.
Oh my god, yes.
Oh boy. I'll go off this and go to HP. Actually, I'll go to max. So one of the things about the road capture, a couple people were asking me, how are we going to get the roads from on the snow maps, because they came up really white. So I have full control over the roads now, so I can make them any color I want. I can make snow roads different than non-snow roads. I can make a random road. If a random road is really important or not showing up the map, I can make it a different color. I can do everything I want with the roads because they're separate objects now. So it's just like we kind of did with capturing the rocks and the bulwark and stuff like that. We were able to totally change the color, so that it should work pretty well.
All right, man. I think
ready?
This should hopefully, yeah. Great. I'll give it a shot. So play there and go this slow. So first, we're just gonna show how the vehicles and the roads. I think the roads are a big part of this video as well. How it all feels, and then we have a comparison video as well here. So as you can see, it's actually subtle and it's kind of hard to see in the video, and the quality seems to be not that great, unfortunately. But it actually, the body of the vehicle actually moves as you turn around. Man, this video quality is.
It was so much better when we were testing.
What is going on? It looks like pixel art. What the hell?
Like pixel art. This is our demo.
It's
pixel.
We tested it. That's the thing.
Foxhole was now made out of pixel art. That's the new feature.
We'll post the videos on the Discord after the stream.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, this is pretty bad.
Make Foxhole HD again. I thought maybe if we'd let it play, it would clear up.
Yeah, it's clearly on Mark's output.
It's going to all of you, so yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's just Discord farting. I mean, at least Sorry about this, guys. I mean, when we're working remote, if we weren't working remotely, you'd get this directly. It would be a direct feed. So, apologies for that. We're still in COVID land and having to work remotely. So.
Oh man, the best part.
The parallel parking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hopefully the next video might be a little better. We'll see. Maybe I'll try a different video player or something. But anyways, moving on. So back to the slides. Hold on, if I can get this.
Well,
back.
There we go.
There we go. All right, so let's talk about the fuel system. We're making a big change to the fuel system. All vehicle engines can run on both diesel and petrol.
Hold for applause.
Pretty cool, Max.
Hold for applause.
Basically, your diesel engine with no strings attached will run at the default engine torque, which is more or less basically the speed that you have now. So this includes all tanks, every vehicle in the game, and your petrol gives you stronger engine torque. So basically what we've done is we've made fuel into less of a black and white issue, and now it's more, okay, if you have the petrol, you'll do slightly better. And this also frees us up to make the crude oil more of a strategic resource on the map again, because it isn't such a black and white issue anymore, right? So I'm excited about this, and how this is going to work is there's going to be a change fuel action on the vehicles that lets you, when you click on it, it'll allow you to change the type of fuel on the vehicle, and it'll siphon the fuel that's currently in the vehicle and allow you to put in the new type of fuel, right? So that, I think this will help really make things like tanks something that logistics players can, in the long run, and maybe not yet, but in the long run, hopefully they can supply them to the front more comfortably, and it won't be such it won't be such a bottleneck in terms of supplying those kinds of vehicles. So that's the fuel system. Now the tank armor system. So we're making some changes to the tank combat because it's going to be a big part of the future of the game. Basically, tanks will have an additional layer of armor now that is capable of deflecting shots, right? So what does this mean? Basically, if a shot is deflected, the tank health is not affected, right? If a shot, if it penetrates, then the health of the tank is affected, right? And the chance of penetrating is dependent on where you shoot the tank, and also the depending on the weapon you're using, there's a higher chance to penetrate or not. And this is going to be interesting because we are going to be introducing more AT weapons and vehicles into the game in this update. So we're hoping that the whole tank combat can feel more strategic. And Max, I guess what else can players sort of like? What was the goal behind this system, and what can players expect to see, like in terms of how this is going to change the tank gameplay?
Yeah, for sure. The tank. So everybody who's played this, played in a tank battle before, will realize that very quickly that almost all the vehicles in the game right now are basically just giant blocks of hell, which we were never really happy with. I mean, with the exception of being shot from the rear, taking more damage, it was just a big giant block. And what we found, that itself wasn't really that big of an issue with us, but what we did find that we wanted to change was that players would very often, no matter what vehicle you were in, always play exactly the same. So they would, whether it be an armored car or a tank or a battle tank, the gameplay was you drive up, you shoot some stuff, you back up, you repair. And that's just been the way tank combat has been since tanks were implemented to the game. What we're hoping that tank armor will bring is that there will be different ways to play. There will be more decisions to make than just how much damage can you take. And hopefully we'll get to see a greater depth of strategic and tactical gameplay. But that being said, this is not going to be just like a straight buff to tanks. There's definitely going to be we might have to reduce some health of some of them to keep them balanced with the game. But more importantly, there's another system that's coming in that we're going to talk about a little bit later called subsystems that will hopefully balance out the power of tanks and this armor.
I'm actually going to be talking about that next.
Oh,
which is cool. Yeah. Actually, do you want to talk about it while you're in a row?
Yeah, sure. All right, so tank subsystems. So like I said, we can't just add tank armor to all tanks and then make them perfect, and then just sort of throw them out into the wild, because they're just going to be infinitely stronger than they were before. So now there's a vulnerability to tanks that is realistic. When your tank gets damaged, or when you get shot by an AT weapon, for example, and it doesn't deflect, there's a chance that your subsystems could be damaged. We're not going to talk a whole lot about the mechanics of how this is going to work. But some tanks are going to be more vulnerable in different ways. So some tanks might have their treads more exposed, which might make them more vulnerable to being tracked. Other vehicles might have their turrets more vulnerable to being destroyed. The subsystems being knocked out should hopefully add another layer of gameplay. For those of you who've played other games like World of Tanks or Company of Heroes, you'll know what I'm talking about in that it adds a lot more of a tactical depth. That when you move up, if your tank gets tracked, for example, it makes it more difficult to retreat, which might compel other tanks in your column to move forward to protect it. Perhaps and likewise with the armor system, if your armor is particularly strong at the front, you might be more averse to doing a dive attack because it might expose your rear than you would for a tank that might have better armor all the way around. The point of these two systems, the tank armor and the tank subsystems working together, is that we want all of our tank combat all of our vehicles to feel unique and special and have additional roles in the game.
Thanks. Thank you, Max. All right, let's see. Demo time or pixel art video time.
Let's sure hope not.
It's an art installation.
Yeah. Matt, actually, I'm going to try something slightly different.
Sure.
I'm going to give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then we'll change it up. But if you can switch away for a moment.
Yeah. Max, talk about tanks.
Tanks.
Actually, before you do, I'm going to turn on my camera for a second. And I'm just going to say, we've never done one of these big reveal streams without having an enormous amount of technical difficulties, and we apologize. But sometimes, especially in this era, where like things just happen. So I just wanted to say I apologize. We've worked very hard, and then all of a sudden things just happened right before we went live. So apologies. Okay, go ahead, Max.
Yeah,
I want to say that the combination of the tanks, the new tank or the tank armor system and subsystem in combination with the vehicle physics is so cool. None of that's being shown here on this stream. Like the actual tank physics, like vehicle physics on tanks, it feels so amazing. Casey did such a good job with it. I really can't wait for you guys to get your hands on it because it just feels so good.
All right, I'm gonna give this a shot. Give me a moment. And
I just want to say also, you're very right. Driving tanks is extremely cool now. They feel beef ass as fuck. It's just like, especially compared to like the scout vehicle or something. You go from like the scout vehicle to a tank, and it's just like wildly different vehicles.
Yeah.
Hey Matt, we can give this a shot.
You good?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, it was worth a shot.
No?
No, it's still.
That's okay.
It's
okay.
You know what? It might be. It's weird. I thought it was going to be the compression from Discord.
I think it's bitrate more than anything.
Yeah, maybe probably. You're right.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
we can walk you through this. Basically, the tank is using petrol right now, and it was switched over to use diesel, which we're refueling the tank with diesel right now. And so the siphon fuel appears in your inventory as a side note. And there's your diesel battle tank.
That's pretty cool.
And this is how now for the tank armor demo. Which this is going to be hard to see, unfortunately, but with the deflected shot, it looks different. There'll be a burst of sparks. We're still working on the effect, but you will get feedback on whether a shot was, whether it penetrated or not. So this is the tracked state. Kind of hard to see again, but and your ruptured fuel tank. And finally, your turret disabled. So are we done yet, guys, or is there more?
That's just the beginning.
Let's just call it.
That's just the beginning. All right, let's keep going. So the next thing I want to talk about, as part of reactive technology, right? So this is the second big thing we want to talk about. Basically, one thing we've done is we've invested a lot of time in recreating a vehicle development pipeline inside our team so that we can make vehicles in much more of a modular way. And this is definitely something that is paving the way for our future, because we plan to generate lots of new vehicles in the future. Hopefully things that are even past the land vehicles. We hope to see more vehicles in the other parts of the war as well. But one of the big things that we have to do is we've been living with this vehicle pipeline for a very long time. And every time we have to make a vehicle, it just adds more to the maintenance work for us. And if we want to generate a lot of vehicles, we needed to come up with a better way. So we basically came up with a new way that allows us, like I said, to build these vehicles in a modular way so that we can first start with a chassis, and then we can build out different vehicle types using that chassis, right? So here's an example of the Warden truck chassis and the Colonial utility vehicle chassis, and the different types of variants that we can have. And this, we're hoping, is going to provide much interesting content for many years to come. And to see sort of this is a subset. So this is just a subset here of what's going to be coming as part of update 37. And again, I want to stress that usually this is not possible. If we were to doing things the old way, it wouldn't be possible for us to make all these vehicles. It would just simply be too much time. We would have to make at most like 1 or 2 vehicles in each update. But with this system, we can generate a whole bunch of vehicles at a time. And again, this is just a fraction of what's to come.
I have a not at all leading question for you. I know we're not at the Q&A section yet, but where is the Warden LUV RPG?
Well, there isn't one, actually, because vehicles, as part of this new system, we're going to create faction-specific vehicles. And the reason why we're doing that is because our whole goal of this of the game is to always make players feel like they're fighting in a real war. And in a real war, you don't have perfectly symmetrical technology. The enemy might make something new. You have to make something to try to counter it, but the thing that you counter it isn't going to be a mirror copy. And we sort of stuck with the symmetrical system for a very long time because there are pros to it. It's easier to balance. Also, from the content creation standpoint, we just didn't have the time to make faction-specific vehicles. But this new system it gives us the time and the flexibility to create faction-specific vehicles. And one of the really cool things that I'm going to ask you about later, Max and Matt, is about like the thought that gets put into the theming of these vehicles, right? Because when we create these new vehicles, it's not just function, right? We sort of think, okay, what kind of vehicle would a Colonial make versus what type of vehicle a Warden would make? And there's just so much to talk about. I want to move on because you're probably wondering, how do you make these vehicles, right? So the new technology system is basically a full replacement of the old tech tree. And our goals is, okay, one, we want to have a nonlinear aspect to this tree. While we still want a progression as a war goes on, we want the option for you, for example, being able to jump ahead, right? We want it to be player driven, so it's players that are making the choices, is not us. And those choices actually have a consequence, and that can help shape what that particular war is going to look like, right? So I want to talk about the vehicle prototypes, but this is completely unrelated to the prototypes that we had in update 36. We were testing out some ideas there. A lot of it ended up not working out, and we came up with an entirely new way of doing this, and it was based on it was based on some of the mistakes that we made, right? So basically, players are able to determine which vehicle variants are researched in a war simply by making the prototypes, right? So by virtue of making vehicles, your faction is choosing which vehicle is going to be the mass-produced one, right? So players. Another part of this is players can jump ahead and try to create prototypes from a later stage of the war, but at a risk of failure, right? So it's up to you if you don't want to fail. If you just want to create prototypes that are always going to succeed 100%, then you can kind of like work within the current level of tech that your faction has. But if you want to zoom ahead, you can do that. It's just a little more work. And in the long running wars, more powerful versions of the low tech vehicles are going to become available. So this helps to solve that problem that we've always had of like, okay, what happens to like an armored car? If you didn't want to use, if you deemed that like an armored car was not useful, and later on you have a tank, but afterwards you're like, what use is like an armored car, right? So this is some way to be able to build a higher tech version of the armored car, as an example, that is higher spec, right? And our goal with this is really to hopefully have an outcome where each war feels unique, because it's not only a unique set of vehicles, but the order of research is going to be unpredictable, right? And I just want to stress that there's no way that, well, not no way. It's very, very hard. In most cases, not every vehicle is going to be unlocked in a war. So players are going to be having to choose from that large pool what actually gets researched, right? So this picture here sort of shows the process. Each faction will go through various levels of research, and by virtue of building the prototypes, you will choose which vehicle ends up being the one that is produced by the entire faction at the end, right? So if, for example, you're choosing between the FMG and a motorcycle with a machine gun on it, if the FMG wins out, now that, because by virtue of more FMG prototypes being built, now the FMG is going to be what's available at the vehicle factory and the mass production factory. And I think, yes, this slide. Okay, cool. So when you build a prototype, there's sort of 3 versions of every variant. So on top of having all those variants that we showed on the other slide, there's going to be 3 versions of each. One is the prototype spec, which is going to have a reduced spec. It's going to have less health. And then the research spec is the normal version that you see in the game now, right? So this is the standard vehicle that you're going to get. And then in a long running war, you have a chance to go back to vehicles that weren't researched the first time around, and you can research a higher tier version of it. And the higher tier version is going to have a higher spec. It's going to have more health. And this is what the so like how the prototype version of the vehicle is going to be different from what you saw in the last update. It's actually going to be like a prototype. It's not just going to be the same vehicle. And I think time for the dreaded video. Let's hope that third time's a charm, perhaps.
It's okay. We'll just make sure that we post all these on.
Yeah, we'll post them all after
on Discord and on the website and stuff. Why am I really dark now? This is not my day.
I want to take, since we're waiting for this video to come up, I want to take this moment to address a concern that I've been pinged about 100 times already, was about the faction-specific vehicles. I think one of the important things to note is maybe faction-specific's not the right word for it. What we're looking for is asymmetrical factions. If you're going to talk about the way that what we're going to be going for with the vehicles and for the rest of Foxhole is that we want to try asymmetrical factions. when we think about all of the famous RTS games of history, or like all of them, like all the greatest RTS games, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Company of Heroes, all of them, not one of them has symmetrical factions. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when you think about these vehicles. And maybe you saw something on those vehicle slides that you thought was really cool, and now it's colonial biased. I would urge you to look at those and maybe count them to see how many of those we showed were colonial versus how many were Warden, because those are certainly not all of the vehicles we're going to have for the summer update. There's a lot
That's
of
like
stuff that you haven't seen
you
yet.
You guys don't even know. I think it'll be.
Yes, it is.
It's been like that's just like a sampling. That's like a little like just a taster.
All right, cool. Although I do want to say that we are showing more colonial vehicles in this stream than the Warner ones, not because there's going to be more, but just because at this phase of development, a few more colonial vehicles were ready to show off. Just before everyone gets angry because
Colonials have 3 times more vehicles than Wardens. That's just how it is.
That's
because the Colonials won the last war. That's why we chose Colonial.
That's why they get more vehicles.
We do all our development based on the last war. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try slightly different.
That's not gonna be taken out of context at all.
No.
Okay, let's see. All right. Let's get this.
So far, so good. Oh, it's better.
Is it? Okay.
It's choppy, but I can see the vehicle at least.
Cool. This is just this is just a demo video of a bunch of the variants that we're going to be doing. This is the Colonial. Hold on a second here. I think I'll just sit back and let you guys watch. Max, do you have any commentary on this?
No. Maybe that all the stats and things that you guys see, maybe the speeds are not a final representation of what's going to be in the game.
Also, I think it's worth mentioning, because they're kind of coming up on the screen, that all these vehicles are going to have like contextual, like in world names, as well as their sort of function. It's not just going to be truck anymore, because that's not possible. So, because there's many trucks.
What's that new shiny thing? Well, we're gonna talk about that next stream.
What's cool is that like I haven't seen all of this yet, and it's really cool to see it all like just presented like this. I've just seen what I've played around with.
I love this one, the topless Jeep.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I love driving this stupid thing.
Vehicle, yeah.
Well, now it's really potato.
Yeah, again, we're gonna share all this stuff, so you guys will get to go over every last detail.
You know what, Matt? I lied. I think this is my favorite vehicle.
This one is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Actually, this would be a good time, HB, for you to talk about the driving animations. Like you can actually see the vehicle steering and whatnot.
Oh, the driving animations is not just the vehicle steering; it's also the characters and everything. And now that we have this new system, instead of doing one vehicle at a time, when I'm doing animations, I have to do animations for basically all the vehicles of the same class all at the same time. Did we ever say anything about when they get destroyed?
No, not yet. Maybe we'll.
Fair enough.
That's actually a big deal that we should definitely talk about. It slipped through the cracks. It's actually like a big visual improvement slips through the cracks of this presentation. But anyways,
should it be on this one or the next one?
I don't know, but it's really, really cool. It's actually one of my favorite parts. So let me close that down. And I think there's one more thing we want to show you guys.
It's a small thing.
A little.
Yeah, it's animation-wise, this has been pretty intense. I gotta be honest, it's been very, very intense. And not just the animation, but also the rigs had to change on like almost all vehicles. So I haven't been very active on Discord for a reason.
All right, cool. There's one more thing that we want to talk about, which is a new tank. And we're only going to talk about, well, let me just show it off first. The Colonial Siege tank, right?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Max, you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, sure. So if you guys are not really sure what this is, maybe you're not familiar with it from history, what you could look up is what's called a spigot mortar. This is essentially like a heavy ordnance weapon. It's sort of a cross between what is an artillery and a tank. What I think is most, I don't want to talk too much about the stats on this mostly because they're not really set yet. But the what is I think really important about this is that it's supposed. The reason we chose to show off this one, the mortar tank or the siege tank, is because it really highlights what the colonial faction is about. Going back to that asymmetrical factions thing, we didn't want to just create a siege tank for both sides. We wanted to create a tank that created that sort of sold you on the perspective of what the colonials are. And I think Matt is going to be way better for explaining exactly who these factions are and what their preferences are. I don't know, Matt, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is this tank is about. Well, it's in the name. It's a siege tank. It's about sieging. It is not about defense. It is about assault. It's named colloquially by the colonials. It's called a ballista, and a ballista was a giant weapon that shot giant arrows into buildings. So take that with what you will, but this tank is designed to make things go boom.
So what would you say is the reason why? Like, why would the colonials get this tank and not the wardens?
Wardens have a lot of walls. So when so
are you telling me that the wardens are going to get the wall tank?
Yeah, it's just a big, like, wide, just like piece of brick on treads. It's kind of a cool idea, actually. I think about it. The colonials are a lot more aggressive. I mean, it's in their name. Their name is colonials. They're a lot more. They'll push forward at all costs. Whether there's a wall in the way, it doesn't fucking matter. They're gonna walk right through it with maybe a siege tank at the front of the line, and then. I don't want to get too deep into this. You guys can also read the thing, but I don't like to reveal too much of this stuff. But and the wardens are a little bit more defensive, so that's kind of a tease, maybe.
Yeah, I actually think that
to let you know where
colonials are going to be probably mad on the next stream when we talk about
yeah.
particular warden vehicle that is going to be coming soon. So just remember that being first isn't always the best, right? It's for all you wardens that are not happy right now. So, but anyways, that wraps up what we were going to talk about. And remember, this is probably about 30-40% of everything that we have to show. There's a lot more other non-vehicle things. I think this stream we definitely just focused on what's coming in terms of the vehicles. And there's more vehicles, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to be showing off over the next month. Actually, we showed off this stream now, and then next week we're going to be doing a blog. I think I talked to you about this, Matt, but you got to talk again. But basically, we want to do a preview of the world map because a bunch of the world is changing. It's going to be probably like a biggest map world update in quite a while.
I mean, it's probably since the Hex worlds. It's not like a totally like a revamp, but a lot is changing, and maybe we'll leave that as the teaser.
Yeah, and then the next stream, obviously, we're going to be talking about everything else, and then we're going to have a cool blog towards the end. We have a lot of concept art. Julian did a lot of concept art for this update, and it's actually a shame to not show it off. So we're going to have a blog for that. And I think that brings us to the Q&A, but we went a bit over time, so maybe we only got like 15 minutes or so.
We went pretty over, so we'll take a few questions. Max, I'm going to ask you a question right now because I feel like it's sort of this sort of running sentiment in the chat right now. The Wardens are also going to be getting stuff, right?
Yeah, I was reading that as well. I'm glad you asked that. So, what Matt was saying was that the Colonials have, we only talked about Colonial theme, but the Colonial theme is to be offensive and like a battering ram. And the Wardens are going to have a different theme. But that doesn't mean the factions are going to be unbalanced. It doesn't mean the Wardens are not going to have offensive tools. It's just we want the factions to feel different. When you play as a Colonial versus when you play as a Warden, you should be able to do the same things. You should both still be able to attack. You should both still be able to defend. You should both have a mix of good logistics vehicles, and it should be, for the most part, balanced. But we want it to feel like it's a completely different world, like it's a completely different faction, and that faction needs to have its own feeling, and that's all we were talking about there. When it comes to balance, we're definitely going to need you guys' help with the dev branch that will hopefully come out in a couple of weeks. But we are going to need you guys' hand to try to get these two factions the same. With other games that have been put out, it's really easy to like do it behind closed doors and try to get the factions perfectly balanced. We really only have you guys, since we can only test it in a live environment. So when you guys get your hands on the vehicles, if you see one if you think that one faction is stronger than the other, we want to hear about it, and then we can make those changes on the fly.
Canadian Fox asks, will the faction-specific things only pertain to vehicles or also structures and like weapons and stuff?
For now, it's just the vehicles, but I don't see why we wouldn't apply this philosophy to other parts of the game in the future. Because again, our goal is not only to make the factions more unique in the sense that Max pointed out of like StarCraft, the Zerg versus the Protoss. We also want to make it feel more like a real war, right? And in a real war, when you see like some kind of enemy tech, it feels like like you're not gonna look at your own like weapon and be like, oh, this is a mirror copy. On the other side, it just looks different. So I think we want to see that philosophy applied to other parts of the game, but we'll have to wait and see.
Timberwolf asks, is the ballista a self-propelled artillery vehicle?
Is the ballista itself an artillery propelled vehicle?
Yeah, is the self-propelled artillery vehicle. Like, is the ballista more of an artillery or more of a tank?
Oh, I see. It's more of, I think it actually fires so where it's different, where it's going to be different is that it's going to like physically fire a projectile that actually moves, as opposed to like the tanks, which have this really fast shot. If that kind of answers the question.
You think so?
George Michael asks. Sorry, did you have something, Max?
I was just going to say, like I said before, if you're looking for references of this, look up spigot mortar. If you're not sure of what it is or how it works, look up a spigot mortar. It's supposed to function similarly.
So George Michael asks, will the vehicle variants apply to all vehicles or only a select few?
Well, I think moving forward, the goal is to actually just make it, well, right now it's going to apply to most vehicles, right? But I think as we move into the future, the line is gonna blur like much more, and it's gonna look less like here are these vehicles with variants, and it's just gonna look like here are a bunch of vehicles that the Colonials would have made. Here are a bunch of vehicles that the Wardens would have made. And if it made sense for them to make a variant, then there would be a variant, and less of this like sort of rigid, sort of there needs to be X number of these vehicles and Y number of like variants. It's going to be more based on what we feel like the factions would actually produce in terms of the lore.
Good question. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name, but it starts with a P. What happened to relics? What happened to them?
So the relics is something that we bring back like every so often. Maybe like we don't really have a regular schedule for it, but we had them initially last spring, and then we brought them back for the winter update, and then we also brought them back just the last update for a single war. And because we don't want to always have them in the game, because we feel like that would um, they wouldn't feel as special anymore, because really they're not. The whole point of the relics is that they're from the past, right? And it's not just this mass produced type of vehicle, so they should kind of feel, in terms of the lore, like these vehicles that once in a while they might like resurface in some way, and then we figure out what's the next way we're gonna have them resurface. So I wouldn't expect to see them back for like a while, actually. But I don't think you've seen the last of them.
Cluse asks, are the new vehicle physics affected by inventory weight?
Yeah, so it's going to be similar to the previous system, where so it's actually interesting because we tested so in the current game, how much you have in your vehicle affects the speed, and it does it in a very type like artificial way. We just kind of set the max speed. So in the new system, we tried at the beginning to make it more realistic, because the new vehicles are more physically accurate. We actually tried saying, okay, let's just add more weight in. So it's just weight is another sort of like input into the physics system, and it actually turned out to be like not as effective. It didn't really do what we wanted to do. So in the end, we ended up reverting back to something that was um, uh, that was able to get the result that we ultimately wanted, which is that the vehicle is faster and slower in general, instead of being based more on like proper physics of like being more heavy, which actually had an adverse effect on the user experience. But I also do want to say that this physics system, kind of like while we're on the topic, it's going to require a lot of tuning between now and shipping, and as well, it's something that I think that it will take some getting used to, because the old system was extremely artificial. You can kind of turn um, like instantaneously without any consequence. You can kind of get up to full speed without proper like acceleration. And I think that when you first try the new physics system, you might actually feel like, oh, this is not, this is not as effective as it used to be. But a lot of it is because the old system was completely fake. You just hit a button and then your truck just goes. But now you actually have to have proper like acceleration physics. So it is going to be it is going to be different, and I want to like just want to say that you need to get used to it at first. But we have taken care to make sure that the driving times for critical vehicles like the logistic vehicles is not going to be any worse. In fact, if you're a skilled driver, we're hoping that you can get from point A to B even faster than before.
I lost the question asker, but the questioner, anyway, but they asked, are tier 1 roads going to be slower than the current standard roads? And the answer to that is no.
No.
They are, the tier 1 roads are the standard roads now, and it will only get faster with higher tier roads. That's an easy one. I'm gonna ask like 2 more questions. Oh, it's moving too fast. So Yeti Heavy asks, when you say prototyping, does that mean you can prototype all vehicles, but you can only build certain vehicles in the factory?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, depending on your research level, you'll have a choice of prototypes to build, and when you build, but those prototypes won't be available to build at the normal factory, right? You have to wait until it can unlock for the entire faction, and we'll get into a little bit more about how that works on the next stream because it's tied into um, some changes that are being made to the resource system. So yeah, we'll have more to say on the next stream about that.
Just want to find a kind of a. All right, here's a good question to end on for this first dev stream back. Admiral Jimmy asks in a roundabout way, when is the update coming?
We're gonna have a solid date very soon, but I would expect it the first week of August, most likely. But we'll let you guys know the exact date as soon as possible. So in about like a bit over 4 weeks, we're hoping for a dev branch in 2.5 to 3 weeks. I felt that last couple of updates where we had a longer dev branch, it has been useful. So we're going to try to shoot for a longer dev branch. But there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we'll have to see where things land.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Max and HB and Mark. HB, give us our little outro.
I don't even remember what it is.
I know it's been so long.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for all the questions. We do this dev stream supposedly every second weekend on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. EST on twitch.tv/Foxhole game. We also put them on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Foxhole. Yeah, we also answer questions on the descriptions on the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, join us on Twitch to ask questions live. We answer only a fraction of them from the chat because they go by so fast. But if you really want to talk to us, we can also join the Discord, join the community, discord.gg/Foxhole as well. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Matt. That's it.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Stay Foxy.